Hey everyone, it's Hotswap. Today's video features the QK75 from Qwertykeys. I missed out on the highly regarded QK65 and I had no interest in the QK60, so when this board was announced, I jumped on the chance to build one. And what's not to like? Excellent build quality, tried and tested box on wedge design, and a knob. What did surprise me is how well this board sounds with virtually no foam, but we'll get to that later. As usual, links for everything you'll see in this video can be found in the description below. Please do me a solid by smashing that like button and consider subscribing. Thanks in advance, and now let's get on with the video. The keyboard and parts were mostly self-contained in the included carrying case, save this accessories box that contained the stabilizers, keycap puller, switch puller, screwdriver, braided USB-A to USB-C cable, rotary encoder, and a silver knob. The carrying case is embossed with a Qwertykeys logo. I opted for the ice white version of this board with the sandblasted chroma PVD weight for the bottom. The finish is phenomenal, though I personally could have done without the engraving. Inside the immaculately finished ice white case, I also found some case foam and a little microfiber cloth to keep the external weight free of fingerprints. That's a thoughtful touch, though I suspect most beneficial to folks who opted for a glossy finish. In the top half of the carrying case were an instruction card, gaskets, case feet and screws, a polycarbonate plate, a sheet of PE foam, plate foam, and the Hotswap PCB. Because it's got all these flex cuts and is a 1.2mm PCB to boot, I decided right there and then that I would use the plate foam in my build to try and even out the sound a bit. 5 screws join together the top and bottom case housings. A badge holder comes pre-installed, sans badge, and you'll need to remove that to install the rotary encoder. I couldn't remember whether I'd ordered batteries with my QK75, so I popped off the internal weight and had a look. The weight itself is styled like a browser window, and while it's not particularly heavy, is nevertheless well crafted. A piece of foam fills in the space where the batteries would sit. I used a jeweler's block to check the straightness of my stabilizer wires. Once again, I found no use for my Geon twisters. Maybe next time. Because the QK75 has been sitting in a box for a long time before I got around to building it, I checked the PCB using VIA to ensure that every socket was functional. After lubing the stab housings, stems and wires using Qwertykeys 205 grade 0, I applied the provided shims to the PCB. You'll need these if you're using the Owlstabs that ship with the kit, but if you're using 1.2mm stabs, you can skip this step. I've heard a lot of comments online that the ribbon cables are painful, but I personally didn't have an issue installing them. I just used a pair of tweezers to pop open the socket, inserted the cable blue side up, and then pushed close the socket to lock the cable firmly in place. I briefly considered the PE foam, but decided against it. I did install the plate foam in an effort to guardrail the possible negative impact of the PCB's flex cuts on the board's overall sound profile. You do have to snip the piece that goes underneath the spacebar and then remember to install it later once you've built your PCB sandwich. I briefly toyed with whether I should try unlubed Zakus or lubed blue bubblegums. In the end, the blue bubblegums won out. I was rather disappointed in how muted they sounded after lubing when I tested them in a different board several weeks ago, so I figured a mostly foamless build might help them to shine more. With all the switches installed and stabilizers tuned, that's Qwertykeys 205 grade 0 in the syringe right there left over from my Mode Sonnet build, I installed the rotary encoder to the case bottom and connected it to the PCB. Finally, or so I thought, I connected the daughter board to the PCB. That's when I realized that I'd forgotten all about the gaskets. No big deal, as these were super simple to install after the fact. I popped the case top back on, but made a split decision to first test the switches using VIA to confirm that I hadn't bent any pins. From there, all that remained was to screw together the top and bottom housings, install the remaining keycaps, and the knob. This is the only time when I found the build process to be a bit frustrating. The case cutout tolerances for the knob are quite tight, and it was rubbing up against the top case. I had to remove the top housing and reseat the rotary encoder by loosening the screws, giving it a firm push to the left, and refastening the screws. Clearly, I wasn't the only person with this issue because Qwertykeys even published an add-on to their build guide specifically to help builders address this problem. With the board reassembled, all that was left was to install the case feet. Man, just look at that weight. But we're not here to look at the board's bottom. On to the sound and typing tests. With a few exceptions, I like how this build turned out. Even with just the plate foam, it exhibits my preferred sound profile, and so the blue bubblegums felt like a good fit. GMK Striker looks, well, striking on the board's ice white finish. And that sandblasted chroma weight I'll rarely see is another fine inclusion. The board retains a good amount of flex when you press down, though I wouldn't describe regular typing as a soft experience. The two areas I found a bit of a letdown were the knob and the VIA support. Of all my boards with rotary encoders, Keycaps has hands down nailed it with the height, positioning, and neural texture that makes those knobs a joy to use. In contrast, the QK75's mount screw is a bit unsightly, and the combination of its height, positioning, and polished finish make it awkward to use. I also couldn't use VIA to program a simple macro for the F13 key to lock my Mac. Although I've used this macro on other boards, on the QK75 it exhibits some very unexpected behavior. I do know that this PCB is also configurable using Vial, so I'll have to give that a try. Alright, that'll do it for today. If you enjoyed this video, please help me to grow this channel and drop a like, smash subscribe, and turn on notifications so you'll know whenever I post a new video. And as always, thanks for watching.